Welcome to another episode of Judge for Yourself. We continue with our special election debates. This time we interrogate how political parties plan to combat corruption. In 2011, the Special Investigating Unit revealed that an estimated 25 to 30 billion rand was lost to corruption in this country every year. In the last 5 years, the perception, certainly with the reality that we can debate, has also increased, that corruption has become more problematic. South Africa dropped 17 places on Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. Now, these debates that I conduct are all about the Constitution. Foundational values of the Constitution are accountability, transparency, and I suppose you could add integrity. And really what I want to discuss this evening is how do we ensure, or how do the political parties, my guests this evening, how will they ensure that those will be paramount in the governance of the country going forward over the next 5 years. Now, if you'd like to take part in this debate on Twitter, please use the hashtag #JFYCorruption. We are joined, engaged in this debate, by Andries Nel, the Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, ANC NEC MP as well, I might add. Mmusi Maimane, the Premier candidate in Gauteng for the DA, Nqabayomzi Kwankwa, who's a Member of Parliament for the UDM. I wonder if we could just start with focusing on what the President, Jacob Zuma, said in his recent State of the Nation address on this particular issue.
Fight against corruption must be intensified as well, especially given reports that some services are interrupted or stopped so that certain people could provide those services at cost to the state.
Well, in the light of that, perhaps let me start with you. And I wonder if in 90 seconds, if you can tell me, I just gave the context of what your policy's approach is to dealing with this particular problem.
Firstly, as the United Democratic Movement, we believe that President Jacob Zuma lacks the moral authority to speak or even try to intensify the fight against corruption in South Africa. Because of the issues that people are already aware of, for example, the Nkandla Gate scandal and so on. But as the United Democratic Movement, we believe that the first thing that we're supposed to be doing is that you need to get a leader that would be above suspicion, like Caesar's wife, if you like, and so that you can then be able to promote and firmly entrench a culture of corruption within the public sector. The other issue, which is very also critical, is one where we talk about restoring the powers of the accounting officers in the public sector so that they then make the decisions about who gets the tender at the end of the day. The other very critical issue that we do as the United Democratic Movement is ensuring that we introduce, courts that would be dedicated to fight corruption and focus mainly on corruption cases in South Africa, because we feel that we need to focus on it, because a lot of money, if you look at the amount of money that goes to waste in terms of irregular and wasteful expenditure, which stands at about 25 billion rands a month per annum, those are figures that need something serious to be done about them in order to stem the tide against corruption.
Thank you very much. You've kept your time. Minister.
Thank you very much. The ANC is about moving South Africa forward, and corruption is about moving South Africa backwards. And that is why the ANC is implacably opposed to corruption and committed to eradicating it in whatever form we find it. And that is why during the crafting of our constitution, the ANC argued hard for the creation of Chapter 9 institutions like the Public Protector, like the Human Rights Commission, like a stronger and even more independent Auditor General, a Public Service Commission, all of those institutions which have supported our democracy very well in the past 20 years. And I think the political commitment of the ANC to support those institutions in the execution of their duties has stood out very, very clear. And I think especially in the past 5 years, under the leadership of President Zuma, organizations such as the Public Protector's budget has increased from 49 million rand in 2004 to a whopping 217 million rand in the current financial year. Similarly, a crack corruption-busting institution like the SIU's budget has increased from 37 million rand 10 years ago to a whopping 296 million. So we've supported those institutions with legislation, with policy, with budgets, with staff, and a political willingness to support them and to abide and honour their decisions and the outcome of their processes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Maimane.
Thank you. I think corruption is such a critical issue in our society. I think we can all agree that it's something that we must do every effort to fight. I think it's a fight that has to do with both your testimony as to what you've done and what you intend on doing. The first instance is you've got to create the institutional capacity within every structure of government to be able to deal with corruption. But even once you've created those institutions, it's about staffing them with the right people. Because it doesn't help if you deploy cadres into those institutions to then police the other ones. Because it doesn't work like that. You need professional people, you need people who can build strong institutions so that they can identify corruption when it takes place and police it. The second thing is you've got to eliminate exclusivity. There can be no single individual who has the ability to decide on tender adjudication, as an example. So we argue that you need to open tender adjudication committees so that everyone knows exactly what that takes place. So that even on the streets, when the police are engaging you, where acts of transactions can take place, in exclusive knowledge, make sure there's public interface on that space. But furthermore than that is that you've got to provide exemplary leadership. So you've got to ask your question, when you provide your lists, are there members on those lists that have been corrupt, and can you take them out? For if they stand up, you then take away credit cards from MECs, you make sure you remove things like blue lights, so that politicians remind themselves that they are servants of the people, not the other way around. And then ultimately, in dealing with corruption, you've got to make sure that when there's evidence of corruption, that you police it at best and you deal with it, so that you're not instead shifting people from one space to another, but when there's corruption, that jail is your destination.
Thank
not
you.
Anywhere else.
Now, perhaps let me start with you here, because I'm going to pick up what all of you have said, but I want to just start picking up something that Deputy Minister asked. Because he's saying, look, well, he's not saying this, I'm saying this. I'm saying the figures show there's been an increased corruption. I know that you and certainly your colleague from the UDM are going to be awfully keen to talk about issues like Nkandla. But on the other hand, what he's saying is, paradoxically, it was the ANC who essentially were the ones who generated, to a large extent, the constitutional negotiations of Chapter 9 institutions. And the truth about it is, whatever we may say about Nkandla, we've got an independent body dealing with it, which shows that there's an institutional capacity to deal with this. Now, isn't that something to celebrate?
It is. And institutions are vital in addressing corruption. But institutions aren't just bodies of vacuum. They have people who fill them up. So, for example, let's take Nkandla as a prime example. Leading up to this week, the criticism that the public protector, in fact, the line from the ANC was, it is rubbishing the public protector's report, which is an indicator of how you treat that institution. Furthermore, let's talk about even issues such as preventing, that's a law that's in place, preventing the state members of any legislature from doing business with the state. That law has been violated so many times, and yet people are not being policed. So it's fine to have the institutional capacity in there. You need the exemplary individuals there to be able to drive the process.
How do you respond to that?
No. The insinuation that the ANC was rubbishing the public protector's report is nonsense. No.
It was reported as so.
It was reported that sources were saying that that is what the ANC was going to do.
There was a perception out there. Yes, there was.
There was no utterance whatsoever by any ANC spokesperson rubbishing the public protector. And in fact, when the report came out, the presidency were the first to issue a statement welcoming the report, reiterating their support for our Chapter 9 institutions. The JCPS cluster in government followed suit, and I think today the ANC had a press conference where the same. You can have your say. I've
got to have a break. No, you can have your say. I'm just sorry. I've got to have a break, then you can have your say. So we've got to take a break first.
News that moves. Enca.com.